Hey folks, Ken here. Just thought I'd give you a quick update and talk about a few plans for the coming season. The pond itself, it's been doing well. No problems with the fish, no flashing, thankfully, which for me at this stage of the year is the first time in 2 years. I'll talk about that in a minute. You can see from the Blue Lab Guardian, the temperature is in around 13.5 degrees in the ponds. I find with the Cactoli reads a bit high, the Blue Lab Guardian's a bit right, although it does fluctuate a bit. You can see it going from 13 to 14. On the phone app, it gives a point decimal place for the temperature. It doesn't on the screen itself. And it does fluctuate a bit. I don't understand. I got onto them and asked them, I said, my conductivity and my pH are nails. They're very static. The, I can look at my temperature on the app and it can fluctuate over you know, 1 centigrade, which is a lot, for something that's that expensive. But they said, oh no, that's what it does. It can be interference, which to be honest, I thought was bullshit. But anyway, um, so all going well. I was saying I had a lot of problems the last couple of years, and on previous videos you would have seen. Towards the end of last season, I realized more through experience and inexperience in the past that my fluke were actually gill fluke. And the problem of being over several treatments, I was treating one treatment, or maybe, going um, what is it, the Learnex Pro, one treatment on day one and then half a treatment on day twos and day three. All that was doing was killing the fluke. And with kill fluke, you have eggs. And if you don't kill the eggs, or when they're hatching, they within a month or 6 weeks you have a problem again. And that's what was happening. And then when I kill fluke, fluke continuously, the fish are hammered, their immune system, and you start getting things like costia, trichodynia, etc. And I just had an ongoing cycle for the last 2 years. So I'm glad to say that when I realized it was gill fluke, I had fluke X. Had to move the goldfish. I have two goldfish because they cannot tolerate fluke X, I'm reliably told. It does also say on the fluke X packets it's for koi only. Now, I believe on the very first packets it didn't say that, but they did realize that, I think, from some feedback that it is koi only. So I moved the goldfish into the back pond, treated them with Learnex, and I treated the main pond with Fluke X. I did one treatment, um, and then about 7, 8 days later, I did a second treatment. And then I had a small, I'd say about a 3/4 dose of Fluke X. A week later, I did about a 3/4 treatment, and that did solve the problem, I'm glad to say. I did get Costia a couple of weeks later, which is the norm. And then I used, and I have it down here, I can never remember, the Alprex, which I found solved a problem, and I've been problem free since. The only problem with Alprex, as people say, it is a very harsh treatment. The koi, um, they're uncomfortable noticeably for a few days. So you do one treatment on day one and the second treatment on day two. Now, I'd say for a week they were out of sorts. When you do any other treatment, it irritates them for a few hours to a day or so. So this was, they didn't like it basically, but it did do the job. The other thing with Alprex is it turns the water a luminous green. It took me about 6 weeks to clear that greenness in the water. UV water changes, nothing made a difference to it. And again, a lot of other people have said that. So I would use Alprex again, but I'd want to have something that I couldn't clear with FMG. And the reason I went to Alprex was I thought, it's a 2-day treatment, it'll be quicker than FMG, but in the long run it wasn't. FMG is a bit of a pain. You do a treatment on day one, and then a week later you do a partial water change and another treatment, and depending on what you had, you might do a third treatment, and you're looking at a 4-week period until your pond is kind of back to normal. Whereas with the Alprex, while you treat on day 1 and day 2, it was 6 weeks before that green water was gone. But anyway, it is good stuff. It does solve the problem. What I've been doing with the pond, or the filter rather, just to show you down here, if you can see, and I'm dropping stuff all over the place. You can see there hope you can see it. There's a lot of crap tends to gather there. That center inlet, I use the 3 inlets. The center one is the skimmer, and the reason the stuff gathers there is because there's not as much flow, as much pull through the skimmer as you would get through the bottom drains, and that's only a week's worth. So I think what happens is that I put in food, and depending on the mood of the koi, they don't eat some of it. Now, I've been feeding them twice a day, so it's probably a little bit of each feed ends up there, but there's not much I can do about it, rather hoover out. I also gave the screen a clean. So what I did with that was, I didn't video it, I did it last week. I used brick acid. You can get these purpose, drum purpose screen cleaners, but I find I just use brick acid, and I think it's a Bostik one, and I put it into a spray bottle, and I just spray it on, take off the spray bar, and I brush it in with a brush I have here. I think I got this one in. No, don't even have it. Oh, there it is there. I got that in Halfords. It's used for doing car alloy wheels. It's a fairly good quality one, so no bristles come off it. And I just do a section at a time, the top, spray the thing, rub it in all over with the brush, leave it for a couple of minutes, and then with my under there, it's the battery operated power washer, using the input from the ponds in the filter. I then wash it down, and most of the water goes down, a bit of it goes in. I noticed actually I did the Blue Lab Guardian on, and the pH in the filter dropped to about 6.5 from 7.5, and that was the brick acid. Now, I wouldn't worry about it, to be honest. It's parts per billion when it comes. It doesn't bother the fish. As soon as I opened up the filter and filled up again after the clean, it went back up near normal, so it had no real impact on the pond itself. But I just then rotate the drum a little bit, do that until I've the whole lot done, and I find that's just preventative. And what happens if you don't do that, and it happened to me a couple of seasons ago, is the drum starts to clog up. You can't even see it. It's more, and I'm in a hardish water area, it's more calcification from the water that gets into it, and the drum just starts washing far more often. I was out in the garden and I could hear it just washing away every sort of 10 minutes. So as soon as I cleaned the drum with the brick acid, it was back to normal again every half hour or 45 minutes. So that's kind of all I do on the drum. I just keep it cleaned out, bar the dirty side, which is here. Everywhere else, there's just a bit of silt you get on the, I don't know if you can see it there, but you just see, it shows that the drum, there is some stuff that gets through. You can just see it there, but I have a vac upon vac 4, and I just vac it out every week, and it does the job. And other than that, I will it just works. I have no complaints about it at all. The heater, it's really, I made a decision, I think, on the last video. I was saying I was holding it, going to see if I could hold it at 12 right through the winter, and the temperature dropped fairly considerably. Although we didn't have ice or snow, the average temperature was a lot colder in Ireland than we've had in the last few winters. So I found the heater was coming on sometimes twice a night just to maintain it. And as well, when you get that low temperature, air source heat pumps are not very efficient. So I was finding, to get that kind of degree on the pond, it would take 2 hours during the, spring, summer, autumn, in the dead of winter where you were falling down into low single figures, it would be on for 4 hours to achieve the same. So it wasn't efficient. And I just decided that like 12 degrees wasn't giving me an awful lot. And I read a bit on it, and okay, you're still able to feed, but the fish aren't going to grow much. So the advice I saw was drop it down to 9, and that's what I did. And it came on, maybe 2 or 3 times a week at most. It hasn't been on, I'd say, in the last 2 weeks, and I have it up at 13 and a half. I'd say the pond is at about 13 and a half. So the goal will be probably by the end of April to have it up around 15 or 16, which should be achievable, weather permitting. And then as soon as I get into the summer, when the pond is normally around 20, I'll have it up at 24. And that will allow me to get a lot of food in. So that's the plan. So the advice from some people was, if you have an air source heat pump, just regulate the temperature during the winter, and as you come into spring, particularly around that 10 degree, bump it up so it's not, as I had last year, which I think contributed to some problems, was it was mild and cold over a few weeks, and the pond temperature was 11 degrees one week, 9 degrees the next week, and so forth, and that doesn't help the fish. So to prevent that happening, it's valuable. And then to get that temperature up so you can really get them active and get the food into them in the summer is what I'm going to do. And that's about it. I did have my I think I mentioned it last time, my GSM. You can see it flashing away there. There's very bright LEDs on it. So what that is, I bought it for about €50 on AliExpress. It has a SIM card in it, and what it does, if the electricity goes out, it sends me a text. It's not really an issue during the winter because the pond is cool relatively, and there's plenty of oxygen in the water. Where it will become more of an issue is when the pond is at 24 degrees in the summer, if the power were to go down. Now what I need to do is organize a decent battery air pump for the pond, so I can, now I know people have, if you run a hose across the top of the water, just sort of skim it, put in a bit of sodium thiosulfate and just skim a hose across the top, you're oxygenating the water. But anyway, I'll probably get some sort of battery air pump. I'll see, even if it's something I could stick on the spin drifter just to keep oxygen in the water if that were to happen. So at the moment I have the alarm, but I can't really do anything if the water or if the electricity goes off. Yeah, that's about it. I am experimenting with what's Nutrimare food, so I've been getting a bit of it. I've a mix of Nutrimare and wheat germ in there at the moment. So I want to try the fish on a good quality food and start using primarily Nutrimare. I might just mix in a small amount of wheat germ to keep it going. I've lots of wheat germ there. But see what sort of growth and that I get out of them. We'll just go out to the ponds and have a quick look. We're nice sunny day in Dublin today, although it is windy, and you get free heat on a day like this. I find with the covers on, if I get a sunny day like this, the temperature tends to go up about half a degree in the pond and wouldn't fall much more than that over a cooler, because it's getting down to about 4 degrees. But the fish are all really doing well. It's a bit dark in there now with the covers, but yeah, they're all doing well, bar my Kohakus. 2 of them losing their colour. I'm not sure what I can do about that. The back part of the pond, as I say, I don't use it during the summer, the winter months rather, because there's a waterfall there. So generally, you can see the waterfall. The water gets pumped up here and flows over, and I have a few lilies in there. It is full of blanket weed. I don't know what it is about that pond. It's probably stagnant water and all the rest contributes to it now, but during the winter, or the summer rather, the bottom pond is clear, the top pond is full of blanket weed, and I find I have to turn off the waterfall and treat that on its own with cloverleaf blanket answer just to keep it under control. I did find last year with the main pond as well, I was getting cloudy water that I couldn't get on top of. I thought it was the UV bulb. I changed it, made no difference. Um, and what I realized is it was actually blanket weed. Now it was very short around the sides, whatever it is, maybe it's the depth or whatever, or the water flow in the bottom, the main pond. I don't get a lot of, I don't get the full blown long strings, but I do get short hair. And what was happening was that was just breaking up and clouding the water. So what I did was at about 6 weeks, I'd say probably into July almost, I did a 50% blanket answer treatment on the bottom pond, and that cleared it. So I'll probably just do that as a matter of course this year. Do that treatment maybe in May, and hopefully that will keep the water nice and clear. I'm using the clay as well, which definitely does help keep it clear. But that's it. So they're the plans, nothing major. I've lots of filtration. I will get a few new fish. I'll probably move a few on. Probably those two kohakus that have lost their colour because they're not going to get it back. Maybe I might try give them a little while on more the Nutrimare and see does that help. But generally people say it's more genetic. If they lose their colour, they're not going to get it back. So I will probably move them on and get a few more small ones and grow them on. We have an open day, and clearly aquatics is normally at the end of April or early May. That will happen, and I'll pick up a few there. I do need to clean up this shed as well. It's a bit of a mess, and I'll get my auto feeder probably back running in the next couple of weeks as well. But that's it. Any comments, let me know. But other than that, I will talk to you again, hopefully not too long, as we start to get more into the season. All the best. Cheers.